If this is the first time you hear from Hungarian thrash metal band Atomic, you're not the only one. The very same thing here is me. Now, this band started already 40 years ago, around 1983, but it took more than 10 years for them to do this first album, Slashing Victory, which is now reissued here. Let's take a look how this CD jewel case with the modern touch looks like, and then we'll of course talk about the music. Here on the sleeve, more like CD tray underneath, you will see the information thrash metal since 1983, which probably wasn't that common for a country like Hungary back in the days. I mean, early bands, even like bands like Metallica or Megadeth or Slayer, Anthrax, Sodom, Creator, Destruction, whatever, they were already still new bands of the block back in 1980s. So in that respect, Hungarian band coming around that era must have been a real rarity. However, like I said, this band took quite some time with demos and all before doing this album, which is of course something that a lot of bands did back in the day, something that a lot of bands should still do. So by the time they actually managed to do this album, a lot of basic mistakes were avoided. They so-called dodged the bullet in that sense. But also some of the problems still kept going on. They still take part here on this album as well. But be it as may, this band already disbanded around mid-90s, only to come back 20 years later. So during the first level of existence, they did only this album and then vanished from the face of the earth for many, many years. But we're not about to talk about the history here. We're talking about this particular album, Slashing Victory. This seems to be the original cover, and man, it looks kind of horrible, but probably it was a budget issue back in the days. So at least this new version, which you can hear underneath the other versions tab, well, maybe not really, because this doesn't even include this newer one except for the LP version, which was released in 2018. But other than that, things are pretty much the same. 39 minutes, 9 tracks, so pretty back to basics kind of release with that. Now, thrash metal it is, and there's nothing out of ordinary in that sense. Some of the riffs are really, really lukewarm. Some of them are actually quite decent, but there are no killer, no hit material as such, but the kind of a back to basics, bare bone thrash metal in so many ways. There are no ballads, there are no parts where it gets like super fast or super slow or just going in the out of ordinary ways. In that respect, this is kind of a safe to approach kind of a thrash metal album. However, there are some flaws which I think need addressed to be addressed, and one of them, the main thing here, is the vocalist. The vocalist is sometimes so out of tune that it makes this album rather annoying to listen to. Now, it's not that all the time, mind you, so there are parts where this just goes nicely, flows all the way down without too much problem. But every now and then the vocalist like over trying to sing better than he's actually capable of, and that's actually when your ears are close to bleeding. But that's not super horrible. It just kind of makes me to deduct some points from the overall experience. When it comes to production, other than that, I think this is pretty solid. Not actually great, but nothing to bitch about. I mean, guitars, drums, everything sounds like quite okay. In that respect, this obviously doesn't sound like a big band of the 90s. I mean, this ain't exactly one of those big names, but can't really bitch about it. It's very, very listenable, and things are quite okay in that department. When it comes to the riffs and songwriting, this is very, very mediocre overall. There are, like I said, some better riffs here and there, but way too often it's made of this kind of a basic riffs, which puts this in the box of mediocrity. I was originally going to give this more like 6 out of 10, but then the vocalist started more and more annoy me, and I felt like it would be unfair for a lot of albums which are, in fact, in my opinion, more like 6 out of 10, because if I would just ignore the vocalist, I would definitely say this is 6 out of 10, maybe a little bit better, but maybe not. but really can't ignore the fact because of course the vocalist is kind of a dominating on these kind of albums. So compared to the albums which have at least the same level of production, same level of songwriting, but at least better vocalist, it would be indeed a little bit fair to give this one a 6. So in my books, this is a 5, which doesn't mean it's a bad one. That the bad ones are getting something like 2 or 3 out of 10. But yeah, 5 is something like I can live with and without being too harsh, without being too nice and all that stuff. Being kind of a neutral in the sense like this is listenable, but unfortunately very, very forgettable. So unless you're really going for some Hungarian relics in terms of thrash metal, this album doesn't really offer you much. But if you are into more marginal, less known names, this is probably something that you should listen to at least once so you know more about metal history and all. But beyond that scope, I don't know if there's much really to tell. 2 albums came out after this one, and who knows, maybe there will be more since the band seems to be active these days. Whatever it is, if you want to go back to the history of Atomic, now this is the way to start, unless you really want to dig up some demos and all that stuff. This reissue version of CD is out late October 2023, so by the time this video gets out, it should be available from local distro, or at least directly from the label itself. Click links provided in the description box for more information, and off you go. Bye bye.